You know, it's funny, when I speak, I'm always introduced as Canada's author of the all-time best-selling book, but 50 Shades of Grey is tracking me down from behind. Probably shouldn't use the expression from behind with that book, but you women are pathetic. Okay, I just want to go on out. I am fighting back, though, and this spring I'm launching my third book, The Horny Barber, and it is going to be huge. Well, not huge, but not tiny, somewhere in the middle there. I'm not going to speak about personal finance today. I think people were expecting me to talk about business or personal finance. I'm going a little bit different direction to talk about what I hope to see by 2017, and if not then, soon after. Probably the biggest, in my mind, the biggest issue I confront through all my travels in Canada. I'd like to see our national pastime change, and a lot of people are going to think, why? Why would you want hockey not to be our national pastime? Well, hockey isn't our national pastime. I assure you, as someone who travels sometimes upwards of 200 days a year, the national pastime in Canada is complaining. It's what we do most, and it's what we do best. I have never seen people so out of touch with reality as I see as I travel across this country. People are caught up in the minutiae of the day, constantly bringing down their own productivity, bringing down their own happiness by focusing on the littlest of things. What we have lost in this country, in my mind, is the ability to distinguish between a minor inconvenience and a major problem. A long lineup at Tim Hortons is not a major problem. That's what spins Canadians into bad moods for hours. I have two young guys that work for me. They come in the office, and one guy says, I ordered a double-double today, didn't get it, don't speak to me until 11. This is the kind of thing that fires people up. I think the missing ingredient in this country, more than anything else, perspective. Look around the world. Can this country get better? Absolutely. We have too wide a gap between the haves and have-nots. There's all kinds of other challenges. You brought up some good ones, but the bottom line is there any place you'd rather be than right here and right now? Look what's happening throughout the rest of the world. Look in sub-Saharan Africa, always used as the example, but what about North Africa, the Middle East, all kinds of countries? Think about Syria. A relatively well-developed country is disintegrating right before our very eyes. 68,000 people killed in the last 12 months in a civil war, shot in the streets by their own government. Then think about the lives we lead. Right here in the Western Hemisphere, an affluent hemisphere by any measure. Think about Haiti, where a lot of kids eat dirt every day in an effort to survive. Our pets live better lives than billions of people throughout the world. We are the lucky ones. And it's not just the comparison to the rest of the world that's important. Look at history. Look how far we've come. And I'm not talking back to medieval times. Look at 20 and 40 and 60 years ago, 1 and 2 generations. And then look at the lives the people in this room are living. It's crazy how far everything has come. Everything is better. Everything. And anybody who doesn't see that is blind to history and blind to the lives that our parents and grandparents lived before us. Think about cars. Cars are unbelievable. People say, Dave, they don't build cars like they used to. Cars used to suck, okay? They broke down all the time. You had to plug your car in the morning to get it going. Well, you still do in Winnipeg, but you don't in the rest of the world, okay? You still do in Winnipeg in the summers, but you don't in the rest of the world. But think about cars. You just got flat tires all the time. Nobody gets a flat tire now, and when you do, it pumps itself up somehow. People have cars that parallel park on their own, for heaven's sakes. Even the average person in this room has a car with power brakes, power steering, power everything. All of these have become more and more normal part of our lives. Lots of people have leather seats in their car, navigation systems, sunroofs. Some people have surround sound stereos. Some people have TVs in the back of their car so they won't have to speak to their kids. Now, people say in Canada, that's true, Dave, we do have TVs, but they're not high definition. Fight through it. Fight through it. Okay? People have heated seats in their cars. Are you kidding me? Heated seats. Some people have a heated steering wheel. Put your hand up if you have a heated steering wheel. Put your hand up. You should be ashamed, all right? And you know what Canadians say? I do have a heated steering wheel. The bottom quadrant's broken, though, and every time I turn sharp left, my hand's cold. Shut up, all right? That is not a major issue, but that's the kind of thing that zaps our productivity. Instead of looking around and seeing how lucky we are and pushing forward from there, because you have to be ambitious, we have to want to make it better, but instead of doing that, we're always caught up in what somebody else has who owns a little bit more than we do. We define ourselves so much by our possessions now, we forget how fortunate we are to have the opportunities, to have the lifestyle, to have all of these things. It's not just cars, it's everything. Think about phones. Do you remember phones when we were young? I'm 51. Who in here is my age or older and can lift his or her arm? Okay. Do you remember phones when we were kids? It took you 6 minutes to dial somebody, for heaven's sakes. And it seemed like everybody who you phoned, the last digit in their number was a 0. And you remember that? You had to do that loop to glory all the way around. And if your finger slipped or slid out of there, you had to start the whole call over again. I remember a buddy of mine gave me his number when he was a kid. He had 3 zeros in it, and I went, oh, I'm not calling that guy. Like, that's crazy. Okay, now we've all got smartphones, or cell phones at the very least, and these phones are incredible. Everybody in here has heard this before, but think about it for a second. Your smartphone has more computing power than the entire Apollo 11 mission. Think about that. That doesn't even make sense to me. That's the kind of lives we're leading. These phones are incredible. You remember how expensive long distance used to be? It was a special treat to make a long-distance phone call. I remember on Christmas, my grandparents lived in Sarnia. We lived in Kitchener. My grandma would phone over, my grandma's, and my dad would say, come say hi to your grandma. Thank her very much. That's good enough. Don't linger. You can't talk to your grandma on Christmas. He goes, that's not the one you like. Write her a letter. Like, what are you talking about? Okay? Now, again, it's anybody, anywhere, anytime. It costs almost nothing. People are streaming a live video as they land in an airplane somewhere, and it costs almost nothing. Do you know what else has changed? People go on vacations now. 20 and 40 years ago, people didn't go away on vacation. Nobody went to the Caribbean. People didn't go to Europe on a vacation, for heaven's sakes. You went to northern Manitoba and camped out, or you drove to Florida on occasion, and we drove because the planes were too expensive, or we perceived them to be too dangerous. In fact, interestingly, combine that with the cost of long distance. Do you remember what people used to do? Somebody would fly away, and they'd have a predetermined time selected to call home. They'd call back at 6 o'clock, they'd let the phone ring 3 times, and then they'd hang up. And Bob and Marge got there. Everything's good, okay? Everybody's there. Like, are you kidding me? Can you imagine we actually did that? That's not even that long ago. And then your neighbor caught onto your system, and he'd call back, and he'd hang up just to screw you up. So you'd have to go to Plan B. And you remember what Plan B was? We all laugh at it, but we all did it. They'd call back at 6 o'clock, and they'd say, collect call from Gertrude. We don't know any Gertrude. They're there. Good to go. There to go. This is how far our lives have come now. It's everything, people. Everything. Think about TVs. Do you remember TVs when we were kids? A lot of people in here didn't have a TV. And we had one TV, and it was black and white. Nobody had 2 TVs, not even rich people. You got the TV from 7 to 8, and your sister got it from 8 to 9, and that's the way it worked. And out here in Manitoba, how many channels did you actually get? 2 or 3? 2 or 3 channels. Now people get 500, for heaven's sakes. You got the CBC. No wonder you're here today. You love the CBC. It's all you had, okay? It's all you could watch, for heaven's sakes, thank heavens. I mean, it's incredible how far we've come along on all of these fronts. And you remember how bad TV was? The reception. You'd watch a sporting event right until the end, and all of a sudden, you couldn't see anything. Remember, we got up with bunny ears. My mother would have the bunny ears. She'd be moving them around. We'd stick a hanger in her mouth, whatever we had to do to get the reception back. Now we've got 500 channels. We've got high definition. We've got large screens. We've got TVs in TVs, TVs and watches, TVs and phones, TVs in fridge, TVs in our cars. There's TVs everywhere. And the cost of all this, as a percentage of your income, has gone down, down, down. It's incredible. I go into the high schools and I talk about this stuff, like the phones, for example. And the kids can't even believe some of the stuff. I tell them about party lines. They don't believe we even had party lines. The kids are indignant. They say, what are you talking about? You had to share your phone with a neighbor? What happens if somebody calls your neighbor at 3 in the morning? I said, everybody woke up. What? That's crazy. One of the kids in one of the classes said, wow, you could never have phone sex. And I said, hey, that's inappropriate, but it's a good point, really, isn't it? And you go back to TVs, it's crazy. I mean, they say, what's the greatest invention in the last 200 years? I don't know, maybe penicillin, but the TV remote's got to be right up there. Have you ever been in a hotel and your TV remote doesn't work? You go into shock. You just sit there and keep pressing it over and over and over again. I mean, really, you think, I'm not going to move 5 feet to change channels. That's crazy talk. That's how spoiled we are. Now, a lot of people listening to this, they say, Dave, you're focusing on technology. Lots of things are worse. They're not as good. The environment's more challenged. The environment is challenged on some fronts, but don't forget, smog is down 30% since 1970. Acid rain is down 90-something%. There are lots of good things happening in all areas in our lives. Literacy rates are up. All kinds of things are being tackled and tackled productively. We are very, very fortunate. People say to me, yeah, but you're leaving out things like the fact that everything costs more. Does it? The true measure of cost in life is man-hours worked to buy something. And by that measure, most things are less expensive than they've ever been. Think about groceries and think about the selection in a grocery store, for heaven's sakes, compared to the older days. Even homes, after this incredible run-up of the last 20 years, buoyed by falling interest rate environments, are only somewhat more expensive than they were 50 and 60 years ago. But you know what the experts don't point out? They're twice as big, for heaven's sakes. Instead of being 1,100 square foot new build, they're 2,350 square feet. And they have 2 bathrooms and better materials, better insulation, better windows. Do you remember windows when we were young and the drafts and everything else? All of this stuff continues to get better, yet all people do is complain. They'll say to me, well, that's a lot of good points, Dave, but the healthcare system's horrible. I hear this all the time. The healthcare system's bad. What? Life expectancy in Canada has gone from 40-something to 70-something in 115 years. Are you kidding me? Think about that accomplishment. And we've done that against a backdrop of us eating like crap and becoming sedentary. We're trying to die young, but the healthcare system won't let us. It keeps pulling us through. And yet I talk to Manitobans and they say, Dave, those are good points, but you got to wait 3 months for an MRI. Hey, the guy in 1950 had to wait 33 years for an MRI. All right, they didn't have them. All these technology advances are making our lives better, dramatically better. You look at a guy like my father. He's 80 years old. He plays tennis all the time. He's actively involved in the community. Truly a difference maker, a great guy. He's got 2 artificial hips and 2 artificial shoulders. 20 years ago, he would have been an invalid. Now, it's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep him going, I admit. Maybe we should have put him down. I don't know. Okay? But the point is, for him, life is better. For most of it is. Us, it is. Now, there are people falling between the cracks, unquestionably. But interestingly, we're more likely to help those people. We're more likely to bridge the gaps when we realize how lucky we are in the first place. The missing ingredient in too many people's lives, especially here in Canada, as I said earlier, is perspective. I don't care what anybody tells you, these are the good old days. All right, we are the chosen ones. We are so lucky to be here right now. There's no better place to be than Canada and no better time to be here than right now. That doesn't mean we don't all pull together and work to make it even better, but we are fortunate. This is an incredibly beautiful country. I'm lucky to be able to go to all the provinces all the time. In fact, when I finally slow down from Dragon's Den and all these other things, you know what I'd love to be? Is the Canadian ambassador to Canada. I'd like to go across the country explaining to people how lucky we are, trying to get them to spend more of their tourism dollars here, come to places like Manitoba, go to Eastern Canada. It's just unbelievable how bountiful and beautiful this country is. We are lucky. We are very lucky. Don't get caught up in minutia. Don't focus on the trivial things in life that'll zap your productivity and zap your happiness. You know, interestingly, who I find gets this? Is always we deal with people who are battling legitimate issues, cancer being one we've all unfortunately been exposed to through friends. I find a lot of those people have great dispositions. They have perspective, maybe thrust onto them for all the wrong reasons. They're battling a very serious issue, but I find a lot of them get it. It's so many people who are otherwise healthy who almost have a mental disease of not seeing how good it is. You know, I'm often asked, are you going to speak today, for example, about saving 10% or what we have to do on our financial front to make a difference by 2017 and going forward from there? Or is your mantra still pay yourself first? You know, if I could teach Canadians one thing, what it would be? Cheer up. Okay, cheer up. We are the lucky ones. Stop complaining, throw your lot into making it better, and we all win from that. Thank you very much.